Hi, my name is Amy and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Amy.
And it's really good to be here, and it's nice to be at a meeting. And I still, it's still incredible to me that we're all meeting back together again, that we're all back together in rooms when we spent so long looking at each other in squares, and it's nice to be here tonight, and I want to thank this group for asking me to come and speak, and it's really lovely that there is a speaker meeting here. I know you've got a good friend of mine coming out in the not too distant future, and what a great thing to have. And I just live up the road, and you would think that would mean I would be here a little bit earlier, but for some reason I got back from being away for work for a little while, and I've just had trouble organising myself out of a paper bag this week. So it's just been like, the time was getting away from us, and so I'm just so glad that I'm here and that I'm able to settle in my chair and see some familiar faces, and for Jane's welcome and introduction, and seeing people who are friendly, and that my husband is here with me as well. He has definitely heard me speak a number of times, but I'm very grateful that he's here tonight, and that we've travelled this road together. We've been married now for 20 years. I've been sober in Alcoholics Anonymous for 30 years. I got sober when I was 21, and I was looking at myself tonight when I was getting ready, and I was thinking, I still think, I know I've got 30 years of sobriety, but I still think I'm 21. I still think, so when I'm doing my makeup and I'm like, no, my hair's really grey. I just, time passes and it catches up on you. And I sponsor a number of women, and I sponsor a few women who are quite young, and one of them said to me not too long ago, yeah, I think you're about as old as my mum. And I thought, wow, we're really getting to that stage, but I guess when I get told that I start being as old as their grandmas, that's like a new phase, right? But anyway, I'm really glad to be here tonight. I'm really glad that I'm sober, and I welcome people that are new. There's a lot of people here tonight that are new, and I hope that you find a solution in Alcoholics Anonymous like I did, and that I've been able to stay. I'm really glad that I've been able to stay. There's a lot of people that I've known, and a lot of people have gone in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous, but I've also had a lot of people go in and out of my life as a result of this disease, and that includes in my family, and people that I've sponsored, and in the rooms of AA, people that have been friends of mine that haven't stayed. And I'm just glad that I'm still here, despite my head, So I'm going to tell you tonight what it was like, why I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. That's always the big thing, is identification. Why did I come here? Why did I find it necessary to come to AA? And then, of course, why did I find it necessary to stay? That's the other part of it as well. And then what my life has been like sober. And because I think there was a misconception in my mind anyway, not necessarily for many people that are here maybe, is that I would stop drinking and it would all get really good. And it didn't. It just got really bad for a long period of time, because drinking alleviated the pressure for me. It caused a lot of problems for you, and the police were very heavily interested in me when I drink. But I just didn't feel bad. When I drink, I don't feel bad. I don't have that pressure that's building up inside of me. But I'm from Australia, and I grew up in New Zealand and Australia, actually. But we moved here from Sydney about 5.5 years ago. And I'm incredibly grateful to the women here who reached out their hand in friendliness, because it's always difficult to move and start up again. You have your network and you have your comfortability, and there's people here that would know what that feels like. You get sober in the Palace, or you get sober at St. Mary's, so that becomes like your place, And so it was like starting again. I had to find a place where I fit in. And I sound different, and my sobriety looked a bit different, so it was kind of hard to find a place, because people are sort of watch you from the sides, and they're like, what's she going to do, who is this lady? And so I'm really grateful that those women extended the hand of friendliness, and that I found a place. And the women's meeting on Thursday night is my home group at St. Mary's, and I love those women. And there's also a lot of men here as well that I've known when I moved here were very friendly to me, so I'm really grateful for that. But my sobriety date is the 8th of March 1992. That's not my first sobriety date, that's the one that stuck, and I'm really grateful for that. I tried to get sober the year before in 1991 when I was 20, and I just didn't think that my problem was like yours. It's really great that you have somewhere to go because you're old. You're like, you know, you're past your prime and you need somewhere to go to talk about your problems, obviously. But that's not what I need. And, you know, my boyfriend left me anyway, so what do you do with that? Like, that's always been my problem is they leave, you know. It's like, and the funny thing about it is they leave and I'm completely insane. Like, they're, you know, it's like, but I'm the really crazy, I'm so insane. When I'm not when I'm married, we're just like, I'm completely together now. We just nailed it. But actually, I was speaking one time at a meeting, and sometimes I don't really know what I've said. Actually, a lot of the time, I don't really know what's going to come out. You know, obviously, I'm talking about the solution, but I must have said something because this guy goes up to Rick afterwards and he shakes his hand. He went, "Good on you, mate." It's like, excuse me. I am hot. I'm like a catch. And good on you, mate. You know, I patted him on the shoulder. But you know, I grew up in a household that has, you know, the disease of alcoholism in it. There's no doubt about it. I don't like to call people alcoholic necessarily who don't know or don't believe that they're alcoholic. But my dad was a very, very violent drunk, and a lot of that aggression was taken out on me. And I had a lot of problems with that. You know, I had a lot of problems with that, not just from the situation of being a young person that was happening to, but that I am the type of alcoholic that stores that kind of information for later use, and I drag it around me and it's like a heavy ball that just gets dragged through my life of how I've been picked on. And I really, really play the victim card very, very well. But, you know, there was stuff that was going on in my house that shouldn't be happening to kids. And, you know, I think that my brother actually went to AA for 8 years as well. I was in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I think I was about 12 or 13 years sober, and he asked if he could come to AA, but he doesn't go to AA anymore. My sister went to Al-Anon for a little while and didn't go to Al-Anon anymore, and none of that's my business, and none of that changes my relationship with them. This is my journey, that's their journey, this is what I do. That's not what I was like when I first got sober. Everyone got pamphlets. Everyone got a program pamphlet when I first got to AA because I found the solution, right? And I'm just fired up and I'm excited. I'm going to get everyone sober, including the guys on the street that were drinking. You want to come to AA? Chucking pamphlets around. I was just like on fire. But I grew up in this household that, you know, definitely has the hallmarks of the disease of alcoholism. And, you know, my dad was violent and he was unpredictable. And, you know, my mum just covered it all up to just try to make it look okay. And one of the things that I hope that I make really clear when by the time I'm done, is that none of what I talk about with my family, none of what I talk about with my dad or my mum is the reason that I'm an alcoholic. Like, it definitely contributes to how I behaved with people because of alcoholism in my family, but it doesn't make me an alcoholic. You know, I believe that I was born with alcoholism. The environment that I grew up in definitely triggered it off really early because I found a need to escape how I felt. But I don't blame my parents today, which is just so much freedom just even in that. Because it really did cause me so much pain for a very long time that it was their fault. For how my life was turning out. And, you know, so we're in this house and we're growing up, and my mum and dad had been splitting up since I was very tiny, but they would split up and get back together and split up and get back together. And my dad was in the army, and so I grew up in the army and we moved a lot. He was in the New Zealand army, even though I'm Australian. My mum was from New Zealand, so we went back to New Zealand, and my dad joined the New Zealand army. We lived overseas, we moved around a lot, and there was a lot of facade put on our family, like, you know, a lot of just as long as we look good, that's going to be okay. And that is, there are so many reams of paper of inventory work that got done on that. Because as long as you look good, you're okay, right? Like that's the messaging that you get. So if I'm the right weight and I've got the right clothes and I've got all the money, my life's going to be fine. My life is full of equations. If I can get this and this and this, then that equals this. Then I'll be happy. You know, that's the end result. I'll be happy. But I grew up in, you know, that's what we were doing. We were just covering up a lot of the stuff that was going on. And, you know, we walked around on eggshells a lot. We weren't really sure what was going to happen. Like, is Dad going to be in a good mood or a bad mood? Or, you know, was he going to beat the daylights out of me or my mum or my dog? He picked on my dog a lot. That actually really hurt. I think that hurt more than anything. Because I really love animals, and he picked on my dog a lot, and I hated that. He would pick on her with brooms and all sorts of things, and one time I thought he was going to kill her, and I stood in front of it, and, you know, I have always been that person that will stand in front because I don't want you to get hurt, and I will take it, because I can take it. And screw you, screw you, screw you and how you make me feel, I can take it, and I will frickin' bring it. I will take you on. And I brought that with me into sobriety. You know, I'm in my corporate job. Screw you, bring it! Bring it on! I'm up there in my corporate outfits, you know, flicking my heels around. Just bring it! And they're like, oh, she's pretty aggressive. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm aggressive? And, you know, like the people that I choose, you know, the men that I choose, the sponsors I choose, because that's another whole thing as well. Like, not today, but I, you know, like that's definitely the way all these things that I built around me, I bring them with me when I come into sobriety, you know. And so my mum left my dad. She left my dad when his mum died, and he had to go to her funeral. And I was really close to my grandma. She was probably the only one that could tell my dad off, and I just loved her because she would protect me. She would stand in front of him and say to him, "Don't you touch her." And unbeknownst to me, she was the only one in my family who had ever gone to a recovery program. She was a member of Al-Anon. And when I went through my aunt's things, I found all my grandmother's Al-Anon literature. And but my dad went to her funeral in another state, and my mum said to us that night, we were living in Australia, she said, "We're going to go, we're leaving your dad." And she put us on planes, and we went to New Zealand, and my dad didn't know where we were. And he didn't know where we were for a really long time. And we went and lived in my grandparents' house, which was just such a really sad house. You know, my grandmother was a bad alcoholic. My uncle had committed suicide in that house. He was having an affair with his, my uncle's wife was having an affair with my grandfather, and he had children with her. And so I have these cazuncles, is what they're called. You know, these weird skeletons that come out of the closet. Once you get sober and you find out the truth, you're like, man, these people are weird. Like, these people are really messed up. I'm actually the same one, which says a lot in my family. But we lived in this house, and then my dad found us. Of course he found us, you know, and then all the weird stuff started to happen. It got even weirder. You know, my dad would send tapes, and sometimes he'd put a tape on. It would be like, "Hello, my darling children," because there's me, my brother, and my sister. "Missed you so much, just giving you an update on my life." And then you'd get another one that would be like, "I'm going to find you and I'm going to kill you. And you won't know where I am." My mum would go, "Whoa, we won't finish that one." But where the crazy part kicks in is she would put the one that came next time, she'd stick it in the tape deck. I mean, surely you would just, I would not, you know, like, my husband ever turned out to be a person like that, which Jane's laughing because she knows my husband. She's like, he's so nice. I would not put a tape on. I'd be like, how can you trust them? Like, you don't know what's going to happen. I don't want to endanger my children, but my mum would be like, "Another tape from Dad." And be like, staring at it as it starts up. Because I was always, from a very young age. And that would be what I would get called when it was a really bad tape. And, you know, like, I had not started down that path yet. Alcohol makes things pretty liberal, but you know, but when you start being called things, it's like, well, screw all of you. None of you believe in me anyway. And I went from being a straight A student, and I started failing school really badly, but I just didn't care anymore. You know, I found alcohol. At 14 years old, I actively started to drink, and it made me feel so much better. I had drunk before then. My parents had given us shandies, which is lemonade and beer, to see if we could, you know, I don't know, what's the
what is the purpose of shandies when you're having like pasta for dinner? I have got no idea. Like maybe they were teaching us to drink socially, or I don't know. But I liked it. Man, I love a shandy. It's sweet and it feels really good when you drink it. And I didn't know that I was having a reaction to alcohol, because I have a reaction to alcohol. And but you know, I drank at 14. I was babysitting my brother and my sister, and I decided my grandmother had left a liquor cabinet full of alcohol when she'd passed, and I just helped myself one night and wrote myself off. And I came out of a blackout, and I was covered in vomit, and I was telling my brother how to have babies, and my brother and my sister were cleaning me in a bath. And the reason that I share that is because that's kind of what my drinking looked like for the next 7 years. It just went public, you know, so just that, the language, the conversations, the degradation of how I then was in public, like with vomit. Usually, I was always that girl that had the skirt tucked into her underpants and the makeup down one side of the face, a bit of vomit, you know, and I'm trying to sleep with your boyfriend, you know, and I'm just like that girl. I'm like that girl that's then smoking and telling people her problems at home, you know, like, and then, you know, and I've just like, so that behaviour just went with me out into public. Except I also became really destructive, because anything that's yours, I think, should be mine. So, you know, police get really interested in that kind of behaviour. And if I'm walking around at night, I was in a small town in New Zealand, and so if you're wandering around at night, there's not a lot that's open. So if you need to go to the bathroom, well, you just go to someone's house, you know, and if the door's not open, well, you just climb in a window. And, you know, and sometimes you might need a nap, and people find you and they're unsure why you're in their house. And, you know, it's like, it just got really unsafe and really erratic. And my mum was a single mother, and I was going to school with SodaStream bottles, like glass bottles of alcohol, just get me through school. And I was spending a lot of time in the social welfare officers' rooms. They had these rooms, they called them the pink calming down rooms, and they were painted pink, and they had these old wooden desks in there, and we would get sent in there to calm down, because my behaviour was always really aggressive. Like I just was so angry, and really angry at all of you. And the only person who I wasn't angry at was my English teacher. I think because she understood. I loved her. She used to play Talking Heads on her stereo up the front of the room, and I thought she was way cool. I was like, she's really cool. And I'd be smoking outside in the hallway because I, you know, was in trouble again. Like I was always in trouble. I was either suspended, or I was smoking dope on the oval out the back, or jumped over, because I went to a girls' school, but, you know, the enticing boys over the fence, so I would find them at the boys' school, you know, or tattooing my friend during a lunch break because her boyfriend had a tattoo gun because he's in a gang. I mean, we're 15, like that's all completely normal, right? You know what I'm saying? And my mom's trying to put it all together with us, and I used to frequent this bar, and it was full of gangs. Where I lived in New Zealand was like a crossroad for a lot of the gangs that would go up and down the North Island, and so we would go to this bar because I've always wanted to be really cool. I want to hang out with the really bad people, and I would drink in there with my friends. And the drinking age in New Zealand, in Australia it's 18, but in New Zealand it's similar to here in the United States, it's 21. So I'm drinking in there at the age of 14. And the publican didn't care because we're all spending money, but he would tell us when the police were coming so we could jump out the big windows and stand outside and then get back in again when the police had gone. But I remember one night I'm drinking in this bar, and my brother is a lot younger than me, and so I'm in this bar and I'm drinking, and my mum couldn't find me because I wouldn't come home periodically, and I turned around, and outside the busy bar, outside the window, was my mum with my baby brother. And she's standing there holding his hand and crying and looking in the window of the bar and staring at me. And the way that I deal with that is the rage that filled inside of me that she'd even come down there to ruin my night. I just stared at her and I turned around and I walked into the crowd of people. And I told a friend of mine about it, and I was like, can you believe that? Can you believe that she would do that? How dare she turn up here and come looking for me? Because I don't care about you. I don't care how you feel about anything that I'm doing. I don't see that it's any of your business. I'm not harming anybody. Get off my back. Just get off my back. You know, and as I said, the police started to get interested in how I was behaving, and I started to proposition them to get out of difficult situations. And I just became somebody that I didn't want to be. I sold my soul for alcohol, and I sold my body for alcohol. I poured my life down the drain. I'd done ballet for years. I was very good at dancing, and all of that disappears with alcohol. Like I said, I was very, very good at school. I was quite academic. All of that becomes solvable in alcohol. And what happened for me is I failed school really badly, and I ended up working in a shop on the main street of New Plymouth, which is where I was growing up. And New Plymouth was a town that was dying, and there were shops that were boarded up, and that's where I was working in a jewellery store, not in that main strip. And my mum had gone back to live with my dad. And I was 17, and I was living in New Zealand by myself, and I was living in my friend's mother's garage. She'd said that I could live there because I had nowhere to live. And I wish that I could tell you that it looked like some of the nice garages that we have here in the United States. But it was separate from the house. It had holes in the roof. I slept on a mattress on the floor that didn't have any bedding on it. And I had a wet bar in there, and that was the thing that I thought was really great. And then I would go into the house and I would steal stuff from that woman that had kindly given me that garage to live in. And I found my boyfriend one night at a party sleeping with another girl, which was not uncommon because that kind of stuff happened all the time in the circles that I mixed with. But I was particularly annoyed about it that night. And so I dragged him by his hair out of the party, and I beat her up. And I put him in the back of the car, and I drove the car like no one's business, and I rammed it into a brick wall. And I rode off 2 parked cars at the same time. And so then the police are very interested in me. And I'm in the hospital. And that was back in the day when breathalyzers didn't exist. So they took my bloods, and the bloods got lost. And I rang my dad, and I said to him, I need to come home back to Australia. And I moved back in with my parents. I started dating a policeman, and my life spiraled down even further. Because, you know, I just used his badge as a shield. He was as bad a drinker as I was, I swear. But I was convinced he was sleeping with women when he was working. So I would have to go and check on him, you know. I'd have a few drinks, he'd go off to work, and I'd follow him. And one night we had this huge fight. He's working, he's in his policeman's uniform, and we have this huge fight on the street, and I've got like a hamburger on one of my hands. And I'm like, you effing so-and-so, you just sleep with everyone. You just out here because you want to sleep with everyone. And he's like, you need to just go home. And I'm like, just grabbed my hamburger, and I just smashed it into his head and mashed it all through his hair. And from then on, if he knew that I was not in a good space, he would handcuff me to the staircase so that I couldn't get to him, because he ended up with a massive ear infection as a result of my behaviour. And you know, I drove his car up the front of my parents' lawn one night, and I took out the front yard of my parents' house. Like, I took off fences and trees, and I got out of, I had no idea, and I passed out in my bed, and my dad woke me up by dragging me out of my bed and beating me up, and he really was going to town, and he kicked me out, and he said, you're not to have anything to do with any of us, you're not to call us anymore, you've got to get out. We're just done. We're just sick of you. And I rang my mum, and I said, I'm going to call the police. How dare he beat me up like that? Because I was pretty bruised and beaten up. And my mum just was heartbroken. And gosh, it makes me get sad. I think as I've gotten older and I've stayed sober, and my dad recently passed away as well, I just realised how selfish alcoholism is. The damage that I did to people, that they might have been messed up. My parents did the best they could with very bad information, but I really did my best to destroy them. You know, I really did my best to make them feel miserable. And my mum just started crying, and she said, just leave us alone. And that was it. And That was the beginning of my rock bottom, and I lived with this girl, and the end of my drinking, my last night of the last big bender that I did, because I drank when I got to AA, but the last big bender that I had was I came to on the couch where I was living, and I had no clothes on, which was not unusual, but I didn't have my handbag, I didn't have anything with me. And then the taxi driver turned up, knocked on the door, and I opened the door, and he was big, and he was fat, and he was disgusting. And he winked at me, and he gave me all my stuff, and he said, "Here you go, love." And I knew how I'd paid for the taxi fare. I knew what I'd done. And it wasn't the first time. I just couldn't do it anymore. I just felt so gross. I wanted to peel my skin off. And I called Alcoholics Anonymous. And the reason I knew about AA is that I'd actually gotten a part-time job. My dad had this phone company, and please trust me, it was not glamorous. My dad was very dodgy, if you know what that word means. Like he had schemes going on and quick wins, and he just poured money out of our bank account, my parents' bank account. But he had this phone company, and his friend that he worked with, he'd gone to Vietnam with him. They'd served in the war together. And unbeknownst to me, Jim had been trying to get sober in AA for a very long time, and he knew what I was. And I did filing with him, if you want to call it that. Sometimes I would get there, I was so hungover, I'd file it in the very special place. And he said to me one day, "Let's go and fix some phones in the office downtown," and it was AA. And that was the first time I'd ever been exposed to Alcoholics Anonymous. And that had planted a seed. So after that bender and that taxi driver, I picked up the phone and I called AA and I said, "My name is Amy and I think I've got a drinking problem." Not an alcoholic, I think I've got a drinking problem. And they sent this woman. It felt like I hung up the phone, and then all of a sudden, and I'm like, open the door, and she's like, "Hello, my name is Karen, and I'm from Alcoholics Anonymous." And it was like, "How did you, what?" She's just like, had this light around her, and she's like all smiley. And she comes like, it felt like she just sort of cruised in and kind of sailed across the carpet, you know, and I'm just like hungover, and I think I'm going to vomit, and I'm chain smoking, because I chain smoked for years. Thank God you could smoke in AA when I got sober, because I just used to sit there and smoke and hate everybody, like just smoke and just like in my billow of smoke. And but she told me a story, and I was like, "Well, tell someone who cares, you know, like really, whatever." And she's like, "I'm going to come back and get you, and we're going to go to a meeting." And I was like, "No, we're not," but I'm such a people pleaser. I was like, "Okay." And so then she comes back that night again, "Hey, get in the car," takes me in the car. And she just sort of, I don't know if anyone's had that experience when you're new and you just kind of get held hostage. Like she just took me hostage. It felt like she just kept turning up and putting me in her car and driving me around and putting me at the front of a meeting. And Karen was not right in the head. I know that today. But at that time, I'm so not right myself. I have no concept of, you all don't seem right. I don't even know why I'm in AA. All I want is my hot boyfriend back who's gone off with his stable girlfriend. Hello, down there. You know, and so, but Karen used to breastfeed her son from the front of the room when she was sharing, and he was 2, and he would run like this sort of way. He would run up the front and pull her shirt up, and she would just breastfeed while she was speaking at the front of the meeting. And everyone in the meeting would go, "Thanks for sharing, Karen. That was really great." And, you know, there was a guy that would just come with his underwear on and, you know, like just crazy. It was a mix, because it was at the top of Australia. It was like the outpost of nowhere. And there were just like these really crazy people, including myself. And we were just like this band of misfits kind of getting sober. And, you know, this one woman used to come with her kids, and they would just like put their heads in their bike helmets and put their heads on the ground and just go around the meeting, and we'd all be like, "That was a really great share, Jennifer. Thank you so much." Everyone would just ignore it, you know, like it would just be, and this one guy would come and he would just do push-ups down the back, and it was just like this real, when I look back on it, it's just like this crazy place. But I got sober there. You know, you can get sober anywhere. I am testament to that for sure. Because here's the thing. I drank again. Like I told you, I drank again because I got to AA, my boyfriend broke up with me, he went off. I can't deal with that pain. I always have to drink over anything. You know, I'll drink over a broken shoelace, anything. You know, I can't cope with life. Alcohol allows me to cope with life. And so my boyfriend left me and I drank, and I rang Karen and I said, "Karen, I don't need AA anymore and I'm not coming back. She goes, Amy, don't worry. I don't go to AA anymore either. Let's just keep getting together and having coffee and we'll talk about how we don't need AA. And I was like, great. So we did. We would get together and we would just talk about how we didn't need AA. And then she got one of my phone calls because I don't know about anybody else here, but I am a caller. When I drink, I like to call you. And she got one of those, and it can start off like, you're so great, I just love you so much, like, I'm just going to kill myself, it's just not going to work, I don't know. And it goes on and on, it's like long. It's not like a quick, I'm going to kill myself, it's like hours of why I'm going to kill myself, you know, to the point where you're almost killing yourself because how can you even stand the phone call anymore? Because don't try and hang up on me because I'll just keep calling, you know, it's never ending. And she rang me after one of those nights and she said, look, Amy, I don't think I'm an alcoholic, but you are. Go back to AA, don't call me again. And that's it. And the sad part of that story is Karen died on the streets of Darwin where I got sober. And I went back to AA. And I went back to AA not with any gratitude, not with any identification, but with a lot of burned bridges behind me where I had nowhere else to go. And I went back into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and I asked this woman to help me genuinely. Well, as genuinely as I could at the time. I have to be very honest, is that she had a hot boyfriend. And you know that line that they say, ask someone who has what you want? I really wanted Damien. He was not in the rooms of AA, but he was hot. And he would come and pick her up. And I'd be like, she'd say, do you want to have coffee? And I'd be like, oh, yeah. Yeah, and I'd go into the bathroom and just kind of try and spruce myself up to get in the car with her and Damien so we could go and have coffee together. And I would just be flirting with him flat out the whole time. And she just was really kind to me. You know, she was kind. She knew that I wasn't well. She took me through the big book. I didn't believe anything in the big book. I told her it was boring and that it made me go to sleep. She said, that's great. You have trouble sleeping. Keep reading it. She said, I told her that I said to her, all the men keep trying to crack onto me. They keep wanting to sleep with me. They're sleazy. She went, hey, here's an idea. Stop wearing plunging necklines and mini skirts and it might stop. And maybe hang out with some of the women. And I was like, oh gosh, they say such terrible things. I don't even know why. Why would you want a sponsor? They say useless things. And I would say to her, my boyfriend broke up with me, and she would say, we're not going to talk about that right now. You're going to go to another meeting, okay? Have you read the book today? And I'd be like, they're so obsessed with the freaking book. Like they're so obsessed with going to meetings. And she would say, call me. And I would be like, I don't want to call you. Call someone else. Like, get a friend. Why do you want me to call you? Like, but I just wanted to be, I knew I had nowhere else to go, so I just did what Dominique suggested. And she was my sponsor for the first couple of years of my sobriety. And then I moved to Sydney. I finished my degree, I finished school, and I finished my degree in early sobriety. And I moved to Sydney, and I went into a postgraduate degree. And as far as I was concerned, I didn't really need a lot of what you were offering. I still went to meetings, but that's about it. I didn't have a sponsor so much anymore. I had sponsor and name. I don't know if anyone else has ever done that. I had a sponsor and name. So if you said to me, do you have a sponsor? I could go, oh yeah, she's just over there. Yeah, that's my sponsor right there. Never call her. Don't talk to her, but there she is over there, just so you could I could get you off my back. And I went crazy. And like no one here is even surprised by that statement. Everyone's like, well, of course, how long did you last? But the sad part about it is I do not, when I'm spiraling with alcoholism, I don't like to take that venture alone. I like to take people with me. And I had met this guy that I moved in with after a very, very short period of time, and I made his life hell. He was not an AA, and he had no idea what he was in for. He was a pilot, and I wasn't really doing AA, and I became that person that I just talked about, where I don't trust you. What are you doing? I know you're sleeping with other women. I know you are. And so I would go to the airport, and I would check that the flight that he said that he was flying actually was going to where he said it was going. Like, I was that crazy person. You know, flight so-and-so and so, is that going to Melbourne? And they'd be like, yeah. Just checking if you had, you know, Gavin Hudson as the co-pilot on that plane. And they'd be like, why are you asking? And I'd be like, no reason. You know, just trying not to act too insane. But I'd be waiting at the gate, you know. and watching, following. And I started not eating, because not eating is a big thing of mine. Like, I diet myself into oblivion. It's chain smoking. And I started just watching, because you've got to keep an eye on them. I'd go to work. I'd gotten a really good job by this stage. I was in corporate, and I was making a lot of money, and I had a company car that was really handy when you got to stalk, because you don't pay for the petrol. So if you've got anywhere you need to go, it's all sorted. And we had not been dating for very long, and I became convinced we should get married. And fortunately, he could see that I was very insane. So one time we were driving on a freeway in Sydney, and I'm pushing and pushing and pushing, because my thing is that I just keep pushing, and because I want an answer. When are we going to get married? When are we going to get married? You said we were going to get married. When are we going to get married? And he just pulled over on the freeway, and he looked at me and he started crying, and he said, I don't know what's wrong with you, but I am not your solution. And I heard him, but it didn't stop me, but I heard him. Like, I heard what he said, and I was like, wow, we should probably do couples counselling. He was like, no, he moved out. He went, but, you know, I followed him, and I stalked him. He didn't know. And it just, you know, the nature of, I can stand here and I can tell this story, but what happened to me is that because I wasn't willing to do what you were suggesting, and I didn't have a sponsor, and I wasn't standing in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous and building a spiritual program and really getting the tools of this program into my life, I spiraled into absolute despair, sober, inside of Alcoholics Anonymous, to the point where I knew that suicide was the only option, because I had followed him to another state. I was in the city that he lived in. He didn't know that I was there, and I was going to meetings and then going and sitting outside his house and watching what he was doing. And then I would go to my job the next morning, and I was completely insane. I wasn't eating. I was sponsoring one woman who knows why she was with me, but I certainly did not have on anything that you would want, you know, at all. And she was holding me together. So I would ring her and I would say to her, I can't believe he's got someone in his house. She'd go, I'll be right there. And she's got, like, I don't know, 53 days or something. She's sitting with me in my house, and I'm crying, you know, and I had about 3.5 years. And I met this person in the meetings who really, because when you're that crazy in AA, people start avoiding you. And especially when you've got a bit of time, it's not like when you're new and you get here and you're a bit rough around the edges, people give you a lot of space for that, and they welcome you in. And Jane even said it, if you're new, you're the most important person here tonight. But when you've got time and you're nuts, people are a bit like, woo, maybe we won't ask her to the AA dance, you know, not quite sure what she's going to do. And so people would just sort of keep their backs up against the wall and, hey, good to see you, you know, locked arm handshake, because they didn't know what they were going to get. And it's a lonely place. It's really lonely, because I felt very lonely, and I felt very despairing, and I felt very angry, felt really, really suicidal. And I met this person who came up to me and wasn't afraid of me and said, if you ever need help, let me know. And then they turned around and said to me, but here's the thing, only call me if you're willing to go to any lengths, otherwise don't waste my time and don't waste yours. And then they walked off. And I thought, well, I'll never call you anyway because I hate you. I had one friend in AA, and we used to just gossip about everybody, anyone. I would come to meetings and I would just, afterwards we would stand outside and go, can you believe she was wearing that? Can you believe what he said? What a dumb meeting. They're so stupid. And then they talk about God, and then they're talking about the big book. Don't they have anything else going on? Look at us with our corporate jobs. And then she would say, we would have this food competition. She would say, how much did you eat today? And I'd be like, I didn't get a chance to eat because it's all a competition. I'd be like, I only had time for a banana. And she'd be like, oh, wow, you basically had a meal. I only got time to have half a mandarin. You know, it's like, and we would just, that would be the extent of our, like, you know, conversations, and then rag on all of you. And so we'd really done a number on this person that had given me their business card, this guy. So I thought, I'm never calling you, but I did. I was desperate one night and I called because I knew I was going to kill myself. I couldn't stand it anymore. You cannot live like that sober. You have to do something. You either have to get drunk again or kill yourself. My head was going to explode off my body. And that person was my sponsor for about 26 years. It's a really long time to have a relationship with someone. And there was a lot about that relationship that was great, and there was a lot about it that wasn't great. I had a male sponsor, and I was very young, and I was actually really vulnerable. And there was a lot that happened in that relationship that shouldn't have. But what I do know today too is that person taught me things in Alcoholics Anonymous that I had never been willing to listen to before. And I got sober mentally. I'd been sober and dry, but I hadn't been able to get emotional sobriety. And that person started to open that door for me. And I'll be forever grateful for that. I've had to do a lot of inventory around that. I've had to do a lot of inventory around all of that protection stuff that I talked about, that I did with my dad. I took that into my sponsorship. And the stuff that was going on that shouldn't be going on, I built lies around it to protect the person so they didn't get hurt, because it's all about protecting other people. And what I found is that that stuff doesn't serve me well or anybody else. So I've had to do lots and lots of inventory work around that stuff as to why I did that, why I find it necessary to do that. But that person taught me how to be sober. They taught me how to put this program, take it off the wall. My sponsor said to me, I don't care what you know, I want to see what you do. What are you doing, you know? And I met my husband on a blind date because my life started to take off. You know, once you start doing what's suggested here and you get into the middle of AA, you get a really big life. You know, my husband is American, he's from here. I met him on a blind date because I'd come out here quite often for work from Australia. And I met him in Chicago. I'd worked out there and I'd lived out there for a little while with work. And I met him through mutual friends. And I think it was like the second date, he came to hear me speak. And because he said to me, we should go out tonight. And I'm like, I've got to speak at a meeting tonight. And he was like, I'll come. I was like, oh, good. And he came. And my husband has the best sense of humour, which I think has been one of the great things that's helped us survive. Because marriage is not easy, you know, because I am the kind of person that, you know, I'm going to find an external thing that's going to fix me, and I bring that with me into sobriety as well. Money, property and prestige and marriage and babies is going to fix alcoholism, right? That's my equation. And it doesn't do that. My husband is fantastic. We have good fun together, but it doesn't fix alcoholism, you know. And so, but we start dating and he comes to hear me speak and I'm like, good grief, you know, like, but we left and he said to me when we got in the car, because he heard my stalking and stuff, and he said, well, I guess if we break up, you'll always come back. And I knew then that he was a really good guy. Like I knew, because my alcoholism is very dark. Like I've had to work really hard not to be that person that just sucks the joy out of a room, because I just like get really dark and I just go into that vortex of just like the world sucks. Nothing's ever going to be good and nothing will ever work for me ever, 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 ever again. And it's like my husband will be like, hey, you know, like there'll be, you know, because we've got 3 daughters together, and when they were tiny and the seasons would change and I would get so anxious and I would get so scared that they were going to die. They were fine, but it's winter, so they're going to get something and they're going to die, right? Like that's my big thing. So I would go in and I would wake them up, you know, to see if they're still breathing, and the kid couldn't sleep because I'd be like, are you awake? Are you okay? You're breathing? And he just lightened things up to enable me to get through that long enough and walk through it, that I could walk through fears that was not grounded on anything to do with reality. I fabricate stuff in my mind and it becomes my truth, and I run off in that direction. So I'm so grateful for sponsorship, because I'll say, this is how I'm thinking, and my sponsor will say, okay, let's just see if there's any fact. Is there any fact around that? And I'll be like, no. But that's the nature of the disease that I suffer from. So we got married, and you know, there's so much around that as well. We got married in Sydney. My husband's parents came out. They're from this area, so they're very religious. And, you know, my family is not. And, you know, my dad clearly is not. But my dad went completely insane because my mum came with her new husband. And, you know, my dad has always been in love with my mum, but he just destroyed the marriage with his drinking. And so when he gets like that, he drinks. And so he drank and he got really crazy. And the short story is that he threatened to shoot me at my wedding. And I told him he couldn't come, and he said he was going to come and shoot me. He was going to get a gun and shoot me. So we had to get a security guard to come, and my brother gave me away, and my dad couldn't come, and we had to keep him at bay. The reason I tell you that is because you can imagine my husband's parents have just come from Utah. They're very religious, they're very clean cut, and they come to my family. And I sit down with them, I'm like, Barbara and Dwayne, Rick came with me, my dad's not coming. And my mother-in-law's like, right? Is he sick? I'm like, well, yes. Yes, he is. He threatened to shoot me and at the wedding, but it's okay. Because I'd grown up with this stuff, right? Like I'd grown up with alcoholism. This is what I live with. And I'm sponsoring people. This is the nature of what we do. You know, we deal with this stuff. But one of the funny things that his mum said to me is she was just really quiet. And she said, so is it genetic? I don't even know how to answer that one. I just, you know, I'm just forever grateful for humour because it has saved my life. I have a lot of fun with the women that I sponsor today because this is a really serious disease and it will kill us. It will kill me. I know alcoholism wants to kill me. If it can't kill me, it wants me to be really sad and morbid. I love being on a train and just looking out the window and just being really sad about my life with sad music in. And that's what my disease will do, you know. And I'm just grateful today for humour. I'm grateful that I'm able to lighten things up and laugh with people. And the women that I sponsor, you know, we laugh a lot. Within the seriousness of what we suffer from. But my husband and I started having children pretty much straight away. Unbeknownst to us, I was pregnant at the wedding. But, and that was another thing. My mother-in-law was like, oh, the baby's early. And I was like, yes, she is. And, but, you know, that then became a problem because babies don't sleep, and I got very tired and I got very angry, and then I became what I grew up with. I was sober and I became a violent mother, and I was hiding it from all of you, and none of you knew that that's what was going on in my house, let alone my sponsor, because if I tell my sponsor might think I'm not working a good program. And Rick was becoming concerned because I was getting very, very volatile, and especially to our oldest daughter, who is 20 today. But when she was 3, because we have, and then because Alice came next, and Alice was a difficult birth, and I had a lot of problems with her, and she wouldn't sleep, and then I had a toddler who needed my attention. I'd given up my career, and I just felt trapped. I felt trapped. I felt like the world was caving in on me. My walls were caving in on me. I couldn't do the meetings that I used to do because, you know, I can do AA when I don't have to think about anyone else. I can really work a good program. You start getting people coming into my life, it's a bit of an issue. Got to compromise, you know. My husband will say, like, you're going to another meeting? And I'll be like, yes? You had a problem with that? And then my sponsor was like, you probably need to start looking at compromise. I was like, compromise? I got to go to meetings. And my sponsor says, you're married. You need to start sharing your life and your time. And that really made me mad. And it made me mad that I had babies that stopped me from doing things as well. And when Emily was 3, and Alice was still little, and she was a baby, and she'd had a particularly bad tantrum, I picked up Emily, and she was just in her little undies, and I threw her across the room so hard that I knew I could kill her. I was in such a black rage, and her little body crumpled onto the floor, and she didn't get up. And I thought, I've killed her. My husband's going to come home. I've killed Emily. What am I going to say to my sponsor and all these women that I sponsor? Because you've got to tell people how many people you sponsor, because then you look like you've really got a good program going on. And how am I going to tell them all that I've killed her? And then, you know, Emily got up, but I ran into my office and I shut the door and I called my sponsor and I said, I've got a problem and I don't know what to do. I'm really, really angry. And I wish I could tell you that it went away like that, because I got honest, but it wasn't. It's been everything about my sobriety has been a process of being willing to walk through things, walk through the uncomfortability of changing, walk through the uncomfortability of having you see me for who I really am, have my sponsors see me for who I really am, and become willing to get it all up on the table, because you've got to get it all up on the table. When I'm still keeping secrets in pockets and I'm not being honest, there's a big chance I'm not going to make it here. I'm going to back myself out of the rooms of AA pretty fast. And, you know, throughout the next period of time, we had lots and lots of things happening to us financially. We had another baby. We've moved out here in the last 5 years. Sponsorship became became an area for me with the sponsor that I had at that time, that I knew that I wasn't growing and that I wasn't changing, but I was too afraid to move on. And there was also stuff that I hadn't been talking about. And I met a woman who I'd known for years and years. I'd actually known her. I used to come out to the US and go to a meeting in Los Angeles often, and I'd met her there. And I called her a few years ago and I said to her, Sharon, I need help. And I said, I'm dying in AA again and I need help. And I said, I sponsor a lot of women and I'm not changing and I'm not growing. And I was really afraid because I'd carved out this identity of who I was, and I knew that moving across to her I would need to start to change and become honest about some things that I'd tried to keep secret. And so she's been my sponsor now for about 4 years. And I can honestly say today that it has been the biggest area of growth for me in a very long period of time, is changing sponsors. And I can see women I sponsor nodding their heads like, yeah, in a good way, yeah, you needed that. And I didn't know how much I needed it, and I don't think I realised how much the women I sponsor needed it as well. I take sponsorship really seriously. I commit to people that I sponsor that I will help, that I will be there, that I commit to, more than anything, I commit to growing in my own sobriety so that I am doing what I say, that I am that person that's walking that journey, that's trudging the road of happy destiny with you. And so Sharon has been my sponsor now for about 4 years. And, my dad died this year, and we went back home to Australia, and he died just before we left the country, before we left the United States. And so by the time I got home, my sister and my brother were already there. And, there's just been some stuff that's happened since then that's been really unpleasant and really hard to walk through. My family, especially my sister, is very affected by alcoholism, and she treated me like a cousin that had a bad illness that had to sit far, far away at the funeral home. And Rick was sitting next to me, and I said to him, just keep reminding me that this is not about me, because I want to go into the space of this is about me and how I'm being treated. And he just kept squeezing my hand and whispering, this is not about you. Because everything the eulogy that was going on and the things that were being said, he just kept grabbing my hand and saying, this is not about you. And I'm really grateful today that I know that this is not about me. And because my disease naturally wants to gravitate to a place where it all becomes about me. And the attention sits on me and how I feel. And I'm so thankful today that I have been given the tools to be able to step away and see what's going on around me, and that I could act better than I felt, and that Rick and I could stand there together with our kids, and that I could be present for my family. And then I came back to the US, and I thought about it for a long time, and I did a lot of inventory around it, and I was really hurt. And then just over the last few weeks, I just had this huge, big surrender around it of, my girlfriend always says she's about the same time as sobriety as me. She's got a year less. I like to remind her of that. But she always says, he who has the most tools has the most responsibility. And I have a lot of tools. I have a lot of people who have invested a lot of time and energy into me. And I have more tools than the people in my family. It's up to me to be the bigger person. And so I have absolutely, my sister doesn't call me anymore. We text, and that seems to be the best way that we can correspond. And I am completely I am her biggest cheerleader. I am like, this is great. Oh my goodness, you're in Bangkok for work. That's fantastic. How is it? Send a photo if you get a chance. Hey mom, how you doing? I have had to become the biggest cheerleader. Otherwise that stuff will take me down. And that stuff becomes a topic of conversation when it doesn't need to be. And the area that my husband knows that I get caught up in is work. Because there's a lot of stuff going down in my work that has very similar to traits of what I've put up with in my life. And it's been a really hard area for me to navigate. To grow up in Alcoholics Anonymous has not been an easy task. I'm 52. And I want to be able to say, I'm done growing. I'm done now. I'm done. The greatest thing that that I really do, I'm really very thankful for is that I've been able to do my life sober, that I've been able to front up and be sober. I've gotten to be a sober mother, I'm a sober wife, I can act better than I feel, and I can be kind and loving, and when sometimes I don't feel like that's how I want to be, and that I'm willing to try to be different. And I've had to build a relationship with a power that I didn't believe in. And that is a huge part of my daily program, is I've had to build a relationship with a power that I didn't believe in and that I didn't want to believe in when I got here. And it has nothing to do with religion, and it has nothing to do with what my sponsor says. It has to do with me and what I need to find. Because at the 3 o'clock in the morning when I don't have someone that I can call, although, you can call overseas, but I have to have something, or if I'm on a plane and it's rocking around in the sky, what are you going to believe in? What, you're going to stand up and start screaming at people? There's got to be something that comes into my life that allows me to have peace, that allows me to have peace when things are not going my way, or when they are going my way, that I can anchor into. Our oldest daughter has got significant health problems, and that's also been a really big thing that we've had to walk through together as parents. And that's a tough deal to walk through together, because we all have differing ideas on how that's supposed to look. And so, we've had to walk through that stuff. And, there's lots and lots of crazy, exciting adventures that life brings. And my life has not been a straight line. It's been a zigzag. And sometimes I've felt like I'm going backwards, but I've just kept walking forwards because I know there's no other option today, and that I really love the life that I have, that I get to be here with all of you tonight, that I get to go home with my husband, we'll probably watch a movie, that those are the things. And the thing that we might have an argument about is that he might want to talk to me while the movie's going on, That's it. It's not going to be that he doesn't know where I am. It's not going to be that I call him from some strange place and demand that he come and get me or start screaming at him. It's not that I'm going to be beating up the kids and he won't know what I'm doing while he's not in the house. That's not what my life looks like today. And, my daughter our middle daughter said to me, when she was lying on our bed, we were talking a couple of months ago, and she said, "Mum, do you remember when you had a really, really bad temper and you would get really, really angry with us?" And I said, "Yeah, I do, actually, and I'm really sorry about that." She said, "I'm just so glad that's not who you are today." And that's as a result of all of you. That's Alcoholics Anonymous. I've not done anything other than turn up and become willing to walk through really hard stuff, because I want to run away when it gets hard. And I've just kept turning up. I've kept coming to meetings when I don't want to. Going back to face when it's easy to hide on Zoom with my pajamas on. That's easy. I can even turn the camera off. And then I can pretend I'm at the meeting. You don't have to be there, It's easy to do that stuff. What's really hard is turning up here on a Saturday night, putting the lights on, putting the chairs out and having a meeting for somebody. That's the stuff. I turn up. I just keep turning up. Someone rings up. They say, "I've got a problem." I'm like, "How can I help you? What do we want to talk about today?" If you don't have someone that you're talking to, I encourage you to find someone that you can talk to, because I need someone that I can talk to. I'm really glad to be here tonight. If you're new, I hope that you stay. I hope that you find a solution like I have in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank you for having me at the meeting here tonight. I've really enjoyed being with you.